She could feel it coming. It was in the air. It tasted harsh and sterile in her mouth. It singed her nostrils and stung her eyes. It prickled her skin like thorns and pressed down on her chest like a stone. One eyelid overflowed, allowing a single teardrop to escape and trickle down the side of her cheek. The tracheal breathing tube snaked down her throat, rubbing it raw as it pushed air into her chest. A symphony of melancholy played in the background from arrhythmic beeps of machines pumping medicine into her dying body to make the pain bearable. That was how Rebecca welcomed the arrival of 1988. She laid in the hospital room, conscious of her surroundings, but unaware of the microbes gorging themselves, taking advantage of an immune system no longer capable of keeping them at bay. She laid in her hospital bed in total blackness, slowly drowning in phlegm, dripping and collecting in the empty spaces within her lungs. She was alone and in agony, awaiting for death's inevitable approach. The morphine confused her sometimes, for now the room was no longer dim, and she was not alone.
Well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand. I've seen your face before, my friend, but I don't know if you know who I am.
The monotonous, regular intervals of shh, 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 called out from compressed air of a ventilator. The respirator covered most of her face, but over its thick rubber rim that created the airtight seal, she could make out the shapes of 7 towering winged figures. They stood side by side, hands interlocked with one another. They gave off a soft glow that held back the darkness just beyond the reach of the light and hidden in the shadows. Hordes of dark and slimy things waited impatiently. The 7 whispered into her head. With desperation, they begged her and pleaded with her over and over again. Say it, say it, say it now. Say it, you're running out of time. Say it before it's too late. You must say it. Say it, it's the only way. We cannot help you if you don't say it.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Her mind drifted back to a time when she was young and innocent. Even now, she dreams of herself still a little girl. She mourns for that child. The precious little thing never stood a chance. Back then, everyone had told her how pretty she was. Friends, family, neighbors. Her father would tell her she was the most beautiful little girl in the whole wide world.
I was there and I saw what you did. I saw it with my own two eyes. So you could wipe off that grin. I know where you've been. It's all been a pack of lies.
Her daddy would tell her those words, often late at night, with the smell of cheap liquor on his breath. Her last memory of him is with his hands around her throat, trying to squeeze the life out of her. When she was 12, her stepdad also exclaimed how beautiful she was. He embedded those words into her memory. Under the weight of his sweaty body, her first boyfriend said he'd never seen a girl as pretty as her, and showered her with kisses of affection and backhands out of rage. By the time she had turned 16, no hint of that sweet little girl remained. Like the fate that would come to her older self, she too died in pain and loneliness.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord, well I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord.
The adult she became lived a life of bitterness and hate. She took pleasure from inflicting that which was done to her, and even upon her own children. Her body was used as a vessel for pleasure and means to obtain any chemical or substance within her reach. She was ready for it all to end when the doctor told her she was sick. She was infected with something, and they didn't know how to treat her. The voices of the seven were growing distant, as if they had accepted her as a lost cause. With her last bit of strength, she thought of all the wicked and vindictive things she had done in her short life, all the pain she caused, and the joy she received from seeing the hurt in their eyes. She pondered, could it really be this easy, even for someone like me, with the last bit of life about to fade away? She let go of her anger and asked for forgiveness. She said, "Yes, I accept him into my heart. I accept him as Lord and Savior. Darkness settled upon her and filled every space in and around her. Paralyzed was her body, not from immobility, but from the reality that she no longer had limbs to command. Slowly, a sensation of spinning emerged in her consciousness. Round and round, she spun faster. The twirling gained speed every second. She began to ascend. She rose off her bed. She hovered in the empty air, suspended in an existence where gravity had no hold of her. The outward pull from spinning was comforting and filled her with a sense of balance that lifted her higher and higher. She passed through and across the vast expanse of space into the profound emptiness of our universe. She witnessed planets, solar systems, and galaxies pass her by. She saw the birth of new stars, the emergence of new worlds, and old suns collapsing. Stellar bodies of churning hot glowing gases and nebulas swirling in complete harmony raced past her at impossible speeds. She exceeded the speed of light and reality, penetrating the membrane that is infinity. Thoughts and reason began to unravel and separate from one another. Faster and faster she shot through the planes of existence, until she stood before the gates of heaven. Though she no longer was bound to a body, she walked through the gates. Though she had no eyes, she looked at the ethereal world that stood before her and saw the people who resided in paradise in this incorporeal form. Her perceptions were no less than omnipresent. She could view the grass, the trees, and the people from afar or up close all at once. She could see everything from every angle, from below or above, simultaneously. She opened her eyes to her companions, who had also been rescued by the grace of God and given an eternity of paradise. All at once, she looked into the eyes of men and women of all ages and race. Her eyes met with different people from throughout man's history. Her eyes fell upon her father, and his fell upon her. She took a step back and gasped from surprise. The eyes of her uncle appeared before her. The eyes of her stepfather. The eyes of a former friend who had almost beat her to death for her drugs stared intently at her. More and more people appeared before her, all of them liars, murderers, thieves, and degenerates. Not a single one of them deserving of a heavenly reward in the afterlife. Confusion and fear filled her as she continued to look into her father's eyes. Through the haze, the past past of those around her appeared before her in her mind. It was like trickles of memory flowing before her. The horror from understanding brought her to her knees. She was witnessing their final moments before death. She saw her father lying on the ground with a gunshot wound. She saw another clutching a large knife protruding from her side. Still another lay convulsing on the floor, choking on his own vomit from a massive overdose. They all had one thing in common. With hands interlocked with each other, 7 winged figures stood over the dying sinner and demanded of them to say it. And at the moment of death, just like her, they had said it. Heaven opened her mind and bestowed its revelation upon her. She cried out in despair from the knowledge it had revealed. She would spend eternity standing side by side and next to the ones who had desecrated her body and had stolen the beautiful gift of childhood. Even after all the stars have burned out, she would forever look into the eyes of the man who had taken everything she ever had and all she was meant to become. In this existence, God and Satan are the same. There is no difference between heaven and hell, nor is there any difference between an angel and a demon. Those creatures in the darkness, shunned by the light of the 7, were not evil. It was trickery to conceal their true identity and purpose. They were oblivion, the true reward from death. It is the only means to attain ascension to the greater planes of existence. The mind of man was not intended to have an eternal existence. Man is a being of gratification and experience, always craving something new and different to stimulate his imagination. He quickly and easily grows tired of the old and familiar. Heaven is not a place for such a creature. Its confinement would be a torment to an active mind with nothing new to discover and nothing more to experience. Imagine this existence after a year, 10 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years. Heaven's light burned bright with its revelation. It is not for God to forgive thy sins. It has no impact or consequence to him. True forgiveness can only come from those thou have sinned against. In a great burst of light, heaven revealed its final truth. All who had passed through these heavenly gates had committed the only sin that was truly unforgivable. To ask for forgiveness at the moment of death and to believe thyself absolved without penance for thy sins is blasphemy. To accept atonement and salvation with thy last breath and enter the kingdom of heaven with nothing more than faith and belief in thy hands is a great offense. Remember these words, daughter of Eve. Cherish them. Heaven's light dimmed, and it whispered, paradise is not granted to those who are absent of good deeds and without charitable works toward your fellow man. And then Rebecca was expelled from heaven, back to her earthly bound form.